a sheep, ba, 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 ba. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. I just want to be a sheep, ba, 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 ba. I don't want to be a Pharisee. I don't want to be a Pharisee. 'Cause they're not fair, you see. I don't want to be a Pharisee. So what do you want to be? I just want to be a sheep, ba, 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 ba. I just want to be a sheep, ba, 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 ba. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. I just want to be a sheep, ba, 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 ba. I don't want to be a hypocrite. I don't want to be a hypocrite. 'Cause they're not hip with it. I don't want to be a hypocrite. 'Cause I just want to be a sheep, ba, 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 ba. I just want to be a sheep, ba, 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 ba. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. I just want to be a sheep, ba, 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 ba. I don't want to be a Sadducee. I don't want to be a Sadducee. 'Cause they're so sad, you see. I don't want to be a Sadducee. I think they actually think I'm like crying up here. They're a little concerned. They're concerned. So what do you want to be? I just want to be a sheep, ba, 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 ba. I just want to be a sheep, ba, 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 ba. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. I just want to be a sheep, ba, 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 ba. And I don't want to live in Babylon. I don't want to live in Babylon. Deep breath, 'cause they just babble on and 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 on. I don't want to live in Babylon. So, what do you want to be? I just want to be a sheep, ba, 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 ba. I just want to be a sheep, ba, 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 ba. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. I just want to be a sheep, ba, 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 ba. Ba, ba. Let me hear it. Ba. Man, that's the weakest flock of sheep. Ba. Ba. All right, you can be seated. Have you ever been around? They're so noisy and messy. Well, like messy, we got that down. Okay. Well, would you pray with me as we begin this year of Sunday school? Lord God, we give you thanks and praise for your Son. We thank you for your kindness, your goodness, your generosity. We thank you that we have this place together, and I pray that this year during Sunday school we will learn so much about the Bible, so much about your beloved Son, Jesus, so much about ourselves, and so much about our need for salvation, and so much about you as the one who gave us our salvation. So Lord, I pray that this year all of that will be hidden deep in our hearts, and we will know this, and we will live this. So Lord, I pray that you'll bless this year of Sunday school. In Jesus' name, amen. So this year we're going to have Kayla. She's going to come up and she's going to introduce your teachers, and then you're going to go off. Just so you know, adults, you are going to just stay in here the whole time. This is your new Sunday school classroom during this era. So Kayla, take it away.
All right, good morning. We're excited to kick off a new Sunday school year today. Last year ended so abruptly, and we are so glad to have the kids back. This year we have some new teachers as well as some new curriculum. The preschool through third graders will be taught an overview of the Bible lesson that will follow what we're learning in church that day. This is a great opportunity to teach your children a little more in depth what they learned at Sunday school, and listening to the sermon will equip parents with the knowledge they need to really drive home the lesson. Our 4th through 6th graders are going to continue with our book on apologetics for kids. They really enjoyed it last year. We will be distancing as much as we can, and we've taken extra measures for sanitizing. Keeping the kids safe and healthy is our top priority and something we don't take lightly. Each month, we are going to take some time to make homemade cards with fun drawings and encouraging Bible verses that we're going to be sending to various nursing homes, and hopefully spreading some light to those who aren't able to come to church during this difficult time. This will be a great way to reach out to those who can't come and also hopefully a way to brighten their day. If you could please pray for all of our teachers and children as we navigate through a new Sunday school year, and pray for knowledge as we continue teaching our Grace kids all about the good news of our Lord. If you have any questions regarding the new school year, please don't hesitate to ask. And if you haven't done so yet, I have forms in the back. We just need you to fill out release forms, or else you can do it online through our website. So please try to get those to me as soon as possible. So now I'm going to dismiss the kids with their teachers. So teachers, will you stand when I say your name, please? Kylie Dahl will be teaching our preschoolers. Let's give her a hand. You guys can go. And Dawn Anderson and Tara Kranz are going to be rotating, and they are leading our kindergartners and first graders. Go ahead and give her a hand. So if you are a kindergartner or first grader, you can follow Dawn to your classroom, okay? Good job. Go ahead. All right. And then Lisha Christofferson will be leading our 4th through 6th graders. Let's give her a hand. And last but not least are the 2nd through 3rd graders. I'm going to take you guys back to your class, and Annie has made it so nice for you guys. So I'm going to go take you guys back there, okay? 2nd and 3rd graders, yep. You guys just wait out there for me, okay? All right, thank you all. What's that?
The next age group is my group. The 7th, 8th, and 9th graders are confirmation with me, and we'll be meeting in my office again unless we're finding that is going to get too snug, but for now we're going to go there. And for the time being, we are also going to be having the 10th graders, because we kind of got gypped on our confirmation last year. So on October 4th, we are having Confirmation Sunday here during the 10:30 service. So we're going to be spending the next couple weeks getting that ready to go. It will delay our official confirmation start, but I'll still have them in there so they can see. It's good for them to learn what's going to be happening with them in the next year or 2 or 3. So confirmation, if you are that, you can head back into my office and have a seat, get comfy and cozy, and start memorizing Leviticus. Go. Leviticus first. Yeah. And that just leaves high school and adults, and I'll leave that to Pastor Keith too.
High schoolers, again, will be taught by John Mayer, so we're pretty excited about that. And for adults, and they'll be meeting in their same room that they have been meeting the past few years. For high schoolers, all of you are high schoolers, you adults. So as adults, we're going to be staying in here. Because of all things that are going on with COVID, we've asked that we're just going to have just one class to focus on a series of different topics. So today, John Mayer is going to be teaching us, as he's going to come from the perspective of being a teacher. He's going to come from being a perspective of a teacher in the public school system, but also from being a teacher in things of the gospel and the Bible as well. So we're going to be, why are you here?
I have one more announcement.
You have to wait now.
Okay.
All right, we'll let him go.
We are also starting up nursery again. So there will be nursery available for Sunday school and for our 10:30 service. So we have Sunday school nursery happening right now. So if you need that, that is now available.
Yep. Thank you for that. Also then, next week I'll be teaching on truth, which is going to be also the beginning of our series, our sermon series that'll kind of take us through the Bible. So we'll start at creation and go all the way through Revelations throughout the year. So that'll be a sermon series, but I'll just kind of begin things, begin on a real foundational level on the area and the specifics, truth going forward. And then we have a missionary, or head of the missions department for the Church of Lutheran Brethren, going to be here on October 4th. So Dan Venberg, he'll be our teacher here. And then John Lee will be teaching on creation the following week. So we'll continue to bring in new teachers. If you would be interested in teaching in class, that's certainly something that'll be taking place. You will welcome that. If you have something that you like to talk about and really feel led to, you can talk to me about that, and I'll talk to you about more specific guidelines and the expectations for that too. We also will be, we like to sprinkle in some testimonies. Last year, as part of our class, we had the privilege of hearing a number of our people just kind of share about how they came to know Jesus and how Jesus came to know, really challenged them in their life and how they've grown in faith since. So if you'd like to share your testimony before I ask you, that'll be fantastic as well. But if you have any questions, feel free. Do you have any questions? All right. And then, so Andrew, John can teach from down here.
I was just going to stand there if that's okay.
You can stand here? Okay.
Is that okay?
That's more than okay.
Before we get started, could I get one or two volunteers to kind of help me hand out these handouts? Perfect. Okay, so while those are being handed out, let me just kind of introduce myself again. A lot of you know me, not all of you. I've been here for about 3 years. My name's John Mayer, from Fargo, and I am starting my 4th year now here teaching in Bismarck. I teach Spanish both at Horizon Middle School, so I have 7th and 8th graders there, and then at Century High School as well, and I teach Spanish 1 and Spanish 2 at Century. So a little bit of a, brief overview of what I want to talk about today. I'm going to start talking, kind of just give you guys some data, fill you in on what's been going on from the public school perspective over the last, I don't know where we're at, 6-7 months now. I don't know how long it's been. And then I'm going to talk about a few different perspectives: student perspective, teacher perspective, parents, and then finally, one of the things Keith wanted me to talk about is how we can help our children to grow in faith in the public school system. And so I think what I planned on doing was maybe pausing for 1 or 2 questions after each section, but then just kind of moving on because I don't know how much time we'll have. But if at the end there's time for more questions, I'll take more at the end as well. Okay, so on March 12th, 2020, that was the last day that Bismarck Public Schools had face-to-face classes. And by that I mean all the students coming to school as normal and attending their classes regularly. So for the rest of that school year, 2019-2020 school year, we finished in distance learning, which meant that teachers were at home, students were at home, everything was done online through the use of programs and apps like Google Meets, or Microsoft Teams, where students and teachers would all log into a video web conference, I guess is the best way to describe it, where class would be given that way. So we had the ability to kind of put up, maybe slides or presentations on the screen that they could see, and we would talk and kind of give assignments that way. Although, of course, because it was kind of all at once, very sudden, different teachers handled that differently. And the rigor, I would say overall, most teachers will admit that the rigor of schooling was significantly reduced the end of spring, just because it was kind of dropped on us without a lot of notice. A lot of the materials that teachers have, especially teachers who have been teaching a long time, a lot of their materials are in hard copies, papers, and folders, that kind of thing. Whereas some teachers, myself included, have really made an effort from the beginning to have everything digitalized. So for me, it wasn't too much of an adjustment, but it really just depended on the teachers. So I would say the rigor definitely dropped a little bit at the end of the year. Then moving on to this year, we began school on August 31st, so that was delayed 3 days. or was it 2 days? 2 or 3 days it was pushed back just to give teachers a few extra days to prepare, especially given the hybrid model that we began with. So what's the hybrid model? The hybrid model is where students will attend approximately half the time face-to-face, and the other half of the time they will be attending at home through a, well, I'll talk about it. It varies on the school. But at my school at Century, the way it worked is we would be giving class, and at the same time, I would have half my students who are at home, they would be attending virtually online, whereas the other half would be physically present. And so what that means is as I'm teaching, I am kind of half monitoring my monitor and half monitoring the class and trying to come up with activities and practice and lectures that can be engaging for both students who are sitting in their living room and students who are in front of me in the classroom. So some schools, however, Legacy, for example, are not doing it like that. Their hybrid model looks like they have half the students in class while the other half are at home, but they're not synchronous, meaning they're not tuning in at the exact same time. They're actually given a separate assignment that they do at their own pace, on their own time for that day. So those are two ways that this hybrid model has been taking place. And so each student at the beginning of the year was assigned whether they're an A day or B day student, and on A days, those students attend, B days, of course, the other students attend. So it was one way to try to reduce the number of students that would be physically present in a classroom and in the hallways and in the lunchroom at any given time. It should be, half as many and allow for more distancing. Okay, so parents had the chance to opt their students into long-term distance. So that meant that from the beginning of the year, parents had the option to say, I'm gonna pull my student out for the entire, I think they had to do it a quarter at a time. And that way their student would just be doing distance learning. So they would be tuning in online through a Google Meets web call or however that their school does it. And I would say, this is just a rough estimate, don't quote me on this, but I would say maybe 5% of students are doing that. Okay, most students are attending school in person, 2 to 3 days, virtually about 3 days a week, because there's what's called a C day, and if it's a week that has 5 days of school, of course some only have 4 due to holidays, but if it does have 5 days, one of those days will be a C day in which everyone is virtual, at least at my school. Okay, I already talked about synchronous and asynchronous learning. Okay, so let me talk about some of the preventative measures that schools have taken then. So 6 feet of spacing has been attempted, not always achieved. So many classrooms, what we did is we took out a number of our desks and we got a tape measure and we tried to measure off all of our desks and make sure that they're all 6 feet apart. That's possible in the hybrid model where we only have half as many students. If we were to go back to face-to-face, that would in almost every classroom no longer be feasible. So after every class, we all have spray bottles. We spray down all the desks. And wipe them down. Sometimes the formulas will self-evaporate in a couple of minutes, so we just let them evaporate. Mandatory uses of face coverings. So basically, whenever there is not the possibility to distance by 6 feet, students and teachers are supposed to wear face coverings. As a teacher, usually I think what most teachers are doing is we kind of stand up front and we're a good 8, 9, 10 sometimes feet away, and then we'll take our mask off, just because especially if you're doing a class like language or Spanish where you need to enunciate, pronounce clearly what you're saying, and you need everyone to be able to hear you. Wearing masks just really makes that difficult. So I think that's what a lot of teachers are doing. But again, it depends on the school, because I know at the middle school where I'm at, because the middle school students are a bit more resistant, at least some of them, to always be wearing their masks. The administration at my middle school has really been pushing that the teachers be modeling wearing the masks at all time. They think that for the students to see their teacher not wearing it, even though they are, 8, 10 feet away, that would kind of in their mind say, okay, I don't need to wear it either. Whereas the high schoolers are probably a little bit better at understanding that's not necessarily what that means. So a lot of this, I guess one of the takeaways I want from this part to be is it really depends on the school you're at. Each administration is handling it a little bit differently. And so I'm just trying to talk from my perspectives at both Century and Horizon. And then finally here, robust contact tracing. So, for example, and this has already happened in several different sports. It happened in the beginning of the year with, I don't know if it was a JV or varsity football team. Someone is confirmed with a case of COVID, and they will go back and say, all right, who was sitting next to them on the bus to the last football game? Who sits next to them in their classes? All of our seating charts for our classes are all uploaded. The administration has those. So they go in and identify all those people that could have been in close contact, and then those people, in addition to the person who was confirmed positive with COVID, will then quarantine for 10 days, 12 days? I forget the exact number. So that's one of the other procedures. And then finally, this is a kind of a new update I just added. We are now planning in Bismarck Public Schools to move to face-to-face, so back to regular, well, more or less regular. They'll still do a lot of these preventative measures, but it'll be face-to-face schooling on September 29th with a eye towards eventually, from what I hear, there's no set plans, but eventually moving all schooling back to that. So I'll pause here. Are there any questions on what's been going on at Bismarck Public Schools? Does anyone have any other perspective that they want to add to that? Okay, so I want to move on now to students' perspectives. And again, I wrote this up about 10 days ago, and now we're already 3 weeks into school now, and so I can already see even my own perspective changing a little bit. So it may be the case for students and parents that that's also changing as people become more and more comfortable with what's going on. So student perspectives. So most students were eager to get back to school and still are. I have a couple quotes here from one of the kids of one of my fellow Spanish teachers at Horizon or at Century. Her kid had made a couple comments. We're gonna be so dumb when we graduate. The idea that after having, they recognize that the rigor was reduced at the end of last year, and even this year, different, it really depends on the teacher, but I think most teachers will tell you that, at best, we're operating at maybe 80%, 75%. That's optimistic as far as the quality and the quantity of content that is being covered. That's just the way it is. So a lot of kids recognize that. They understand that this isn't quite what it used to be. We do our best, but things just take a little bit longer to get through the same amount of material. And then again, I'm willing to do almost anything just to go back to school. And so we see that as well. When students are at home, they tell us that they much prefer the days, their day to be in school, right? Because they have the A-B alternating. When they're at home, it's much more difficult, especially if they're in Google video conference calls, tuning into all their classes. They get 5 minutes between classes like everyone else does, but it's just really draining to have to focus on that screen for that long and not have, the daily varieties that they get, seeing their friends at lunch, having maybe an off period, going somewhere to work, just the changes of settings and scenes and those different things that maybe they didn't realize before, but those things really help to kind of keep you going through a day, and it can get very monotonous just being in front of a screen. So they do much prefer being physically in school, which isn't really that surprising. So kind of tying into that, a lot of students find it difficult to learn online, and I would say this just applies to people in general. This is, I'm just pulling a number out of my head here, but I would say maybe 10, 20% of the population in general can really learn effectively online. A lot of people need that face-to-face engagement. They need the stimuli. They need people. They need someone who can even more easily react to their questions if they're not understanding something. You know, when I'm teaching something, I kind of look out across the classroom and I can see confused looks. I can't look at I've got, 15 little squares on my monitor, one for each student. I can't tell if they're confused. They don't want to, they're even less likely to ask questions in that setting than when they're in class. And so it's just a lot more difficult to learn when you are doing it from home online. So they find it more difficult, exhausting, less engaging. And part of that falls on the teachers too, because so much of our material that we've accumulated throughout the years has been material based on doing things in person. Like I had to throw out 2/3 of my playbook because it no longer applies. I can't do an activity where, people need to be doing any sort of kinetic physical activity just because I can't do that with my students at home. And so we have to come up with ways to kind of adjust things on the fly and new activities, but it's still starting from square one. And so it's not quite as robust as it might be if they were in class. So any questions on kind of how students are feeling about this? And of course, I can't really speak for a student. I'm just kind of parroting what I see a little bit. Those of you who have students in school probably have a better idea than I do.
John, is it the reason why that K through 5 is going to the face-to-face instruction because it is so difficult to teach that?
Yeah, I think so.
I think many of them aren't signing on even because parents don't have time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Honestly, I know people who are like, our kids are getting done at 10 o'clock at night because we work all day, have night activities, and they're finally signing on to try to do K through 5 at 8 o'clock at night while they can't go to school the next morning decently, or they're not signing on at all. I've heard of that too.
Yeah.
People are like, over half our class doesn't even.
Yeah. No, and I kind of want to emphasize that, again, as I said, my perspective is kind of the middle school, high school, but K through 5, I'm not in tune as much, but I do know for a fact that is an issue with them being able to tune in because they don't have, even my middle schoolers don't have the attention span, most of them, to be doing that kind of synchronous learning at the same time. K through 5, it's just no chance. And so I think, yeah, that's probably the reason. And so I do want to kind of contrast then my middle schooler, because even my middle school, it's asynchronous, meaning I give assignments to my middle schoolers to do on their at-home days, and they're usually, if our class period is 45 minutes, it's usually like a 15-20 minute little thing just for them to do that kind of reviews and progresses a little bit along what we did the day before. But it's not a full 45-minute class. And so even my middle school, we're moving at, 60-70% speed of what I normally would do. And I can imagine K through 5 is probably just at a standstill. Other questions? Okay, moving on to teachers' perspectives. So, and again, this is something that, could be shifting as we're moving forward, but I think pretty much every teacher's happy to be back in school, even if it is the hybrid, half and half. We're there every day at least, and so, we're kind of more in a routine than the students who have to switch every other day. But of course, there are new challenges posed by the hybrid model, such as technology issues. And that's for some teachers who've been teaching 30, 40 years, and a lot, like I said, a lot of their material they've been storing in file cabinets, and they've had hard copies and that kind of thing, and having to get all this into digital format and to learn how to manipulate all the different technologies, because kind of how it's been left to us is we'll have a few people, librarians or other digital technology experts at our schools, open up an array of options for us to use to teach, and then say, all right, pick out what you like and go for it, and they'll teach you how to do it. But the point is, it's if you don't have any sort of experience using these sorts of applications, it can be overwhelming. And so I think in the beginning, a lot of teachers were a little frustrated and or overwhelmed. I think that has gotten a lot better now that we've had 3 weeks of school already. Let's see. And like I was saying before, I think most teachers will admit that it is inferior to in-person class, but it's superior to no class at all. So we're doing the best we can with that. I already talked about activities being less engaging, more difficult to support students. That is the idea with the C days. Like I said, there's A, B, and C days. A and B are when the half the student body will alternate being in school or at home. C days are kind of a reduced class, at least at Century, where classes are only 30 minutes long, but then there's like morning tutorial where students can either come in person or sign in to a chat room basically to get help. So we've made a few more opportunities for students to get tutoring help if they need it, in recognition of some of the difficulties with this model. Let's see. Technology, most have it, but not everything that we want. So one of the biggest issues, at least at my school, is the students at home. I have them all in a video call, and I will actually project them onto the whiteboard, onto the screen. And so all the students in class can kind of see face to face, even if it's a little square, the students who are at home. But that's not reciprocated. I don't have a classroom, or I don't have a camera in class that can, be in the back or in the front or whatever, that's showing the class to those students at home. So those students at home are seeing one of two things. They are seeing my face, or they are seeing whatever PowerPoint slide or video, whatever I'm presenting to them. They're not seeing the class at all. And for the most part, not hearing the class either. There are some classes, there's kind of microphones set up that, we kind of had one, but it didn't work that well, so I'm not using it. So that's been one of the major challenges. How do we connect our two classes together so that they can feel like they're kind of in a class and be engaged at the same time? And a lot of schools, I would guess, don't have that technology in place. Maybe some do, but not that I know of. Okay, and then I already talked about on the backside now, teachers being forced to kind of digitalize their resources and activities, and I see this as a net plus for the future. My colleagues who have been slow to do this, I'm just like, you know what? You don't need to sit down one summer and spend the whole summer uploading all your resources, but if you just, every single time you use a resource each day, just upload it when you're done with it. And just do it one at a time, day by day, and it'll make your life so much easier going forward. So I've been kind of trying to encourage teachers to do this for a while now, and this is kind of forcing them to do it. And I think in the long run, this will be maybe a silver lining in all of this, and there are other silver linings as well. But yeah. Okay, so questions from the teacher's perspective. Yeah.
Attrition among teachers because of the changes and frustration?
I haven't. Yeah, I guess I can't say I've noticed anything. I know one thing, schools really made an effort to be proactive with substitute teachers, because that's been an issue in the past. And so what a lot of schools are doing is they've taken 2 or 3 substitute teachers and basically assign them to a school, and they will be at that school all day, every day. And I think I imagine they get paid for that all day, every day, whether or not they're actually fully used. but in an effort to always have someone ready at hand as opposed to kind of an on-call status. And also they're assigning those substitute teachers so that if they do come into contact with someone who is sick with COVID, that they're not going around to all these classes in schools, spreading it, that kind of thing. So, but I don't know that I've seen any increased rate of attrition or retirement or anything like that. No. Other questions?
How successful has the technology been on your end?
For me personally, I would say pretty good, but a lot of it's the technology part, yes, but kind of along with the technology is the just the different applications and yeah, I'll leave it at that you can use. There's so many different things that are online that are available that you really have to kind of push yourself to get to learn how this works. So, there's an application maybe where all the students can record short little videos of themselves saying something in Spanish, in my case, and then each other student can kind of go to those videos, watch these 1-minute videos, comment on it, and kind of, just different programs like that allow students to interact with each other. And because at least I wasn't familiar with a lot of these things, it really forces you to kind of do that. And so I would say to start out, it's been a little bit drier than it could be, just because I don't have a huge arsenal of engaging things to use for that. But that is one thing that the district is really working on. So whenever we get our professional development days, and we're having one come up in a couple weeks or so, that's going to be our focus. So we're going to get together and kind of share different things that we've been using in class, what's been successful, and just try to help each other out with good ideas. So for me, I would say it's been so-so. The technology aspect's been smooth, but as far as really engaging things, it's been so-so. Okay, let me move on to parent involvement. Of course, I'm not a parent, so I'm doing my best here. Parents can help by providing a positive learning environment for their students at home. This is probably the biggest thing. And obviously, parents and families are in all kinds of different situations. I'm thinking, in my mind, when I say this, I'm thinking about my high school students who, for the most part, can be left at home by themselves if need be. But what they need is, these students need a quiet space. They need a dedicated study space, not, in their bedroom, not, with the TV on in the background. They need, obviously, healthy, I put healthy meals here, a healthy sleep schedule, but what I'm really talking about is they need structure. They need structure when they're at home because they're not getting it. I think it's easy to forget how much structure your job and your school lends to your life, and how much it can kind of orient your whole day and keep you on track. Once you're at home, you lose all of that, and it can be hard to know, okay, what do I got to do now? How do I pace myself throughout the day to get everything done? How much time can I take a break? That kind of thing. You don't have, okay, I have class period 1, 2, 3, 4 off, 5, so especially for those students who are in the middle school who are not doing synchronous learning, so they are kind of doing school at their own pace on those home days. Is it? Okay, and Legacy is not, I know for sure. Okay, yeah. So yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Yeah, and I'm not gonna go in and try to evaluate the two. I have my opinions, but I'm sure everyone has their own opinions on what's effective and what's not. But yeah, if you're not synchronous for sure, then you definitely need support from someone to keep you on task. And that even goes for high school. I have a high school student who he's a really bright student. He's in my Spanish 2 class. He's almost always present in school, and he's almost never present at home. And that's out of the ordinary for high school. Most high school attendance is pretty good when they're at home. They're tuning in, logging in, that kind of thing. Middle school, K through 5, completely different. But So, that's just one example of a student who just needs someone to say, all right, get out of bed, do your work, whatever it may be. Yeah. Okay, parents must find a healthy balance of being actively involved in their students' education and teaching and encouraging the students to advocate for themselves. And this is just something in general. One of the, I guess, from a teacher's perspective, one of my pet peeves is when I get a parent who is actively involved, which I like, and who's asking questions, engaged, but then I never hear anything from their student. And the parent is basically taken over for their student and is basically saying, Johnny needs help with this, when can he come in? Or he doesn't get this, how can this be explained to him? And at the high school level, at least, I would like the parents' involvement to be there, but to be lighting a fire under their kids to get their kids to take a little bit more responsibility for themselves. But I have so many parents who are not involved at all that I'm very loath to give any sort of critique of a parent who is involved, just because I don't want them to overcorrect in the other direction. But yeah, I guess it takes a little bit of wisdom, and it is difficult. It can go off the rails in both directions. Every teacher has the stories of those helicopter parents who are doing everything for their kid, and then those parents that have just completely checked out, or to be fair, maybe have home circumstances that requires all of their attention, and they just don't have much to devote to school for their kids. So yeah, I guess it's just kind of finding that balance. And I don't want to spend too much time on that one. So anything from parents' perspective, and if you have something to add, this would be a great time here, because this is probably where I have the least to say.
Just watch Power School if you're a parent. I learned that because missing assignments pop up, things they don't even know is out there, or it gets hidden underneath assignments.
Yeah, Power School
we
is
thought we had a few missing assignments. Like, what are you doing?
Power School is our online grade book, so students and parents both have access to that, and just staying on top of what's going on. Yeah.
So I have some coworkers, I work in a nursing home, so we have staff that have switched to working nights, so they can be home for their kids. And we've had others who have cut hours so they can be home for their kids. And that's great, because your kids always come first, but it's put a lot more pressure on us too, and we're a lot shorter because of it too.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and it's, in one sense, it's like everyone's putting in more effort to make this happen, yet at the end of the day, it's a bit demoralizing, because I started off by saying that this is certainly not as effective as face-to-face class. And so it's a lot of effort just to kind of maintain a lot of these, well, I guess, the whole purpose of the hybrid model is precaution, I guess. And so in the objective, in the name of the precaution, it requires a lot of effort from people. And I know, we're already 3 weeks in, but there's high stress levels in many locations related to this: parents, students, teachers. Okay, well, let me move on to the last part here. This part here really could be, this could be a 2-month series, really. But let me just talk about this for, I guess, what do we have left here, 15 minutes. So I started off by writing this: how can we help our children to grow while in the public school system? And the more and more I was thinking about it, you see I crossed out public school system, because I think this applies whether your kids are public or private school, maybe even more private school in some cases, and I'll talk about that in a moment. So parents need to explicitly and often reinforce Christian values. Let's see. Let me just talk about these next 2 things are like typical self-motivational, humanistic signs, posters, slogans, phrases that you'll hear at a public school. Whatever you are, be a good one. Your limitation, it's only your imagination. Okay, I just did 2. I didn't. That's all I could do. But there are a lot of these sorts of things. This is the sort of mantras and slogans that gets reinforced, and on their face they don't seem, oh wow, that's terrible, but it's just representative, and I'll talk about this I think a bit later. It's representative of a culture that's trying to find meaning in the world apart from God, apart from the relationship with Jesus. And they're trying to find, how can I make sense of this world? Well, let's just be the best person I can be. That's the first one. Or I can do anything I set my mind to. That sort of very humanistic perspective. So that's what your kids are getting at school. That's what they're getting. Public schools, maybe even some private schools with that. But the Christian perspective is a little bit different. And I have a couple verses here. Psalm 121, 1 and 2. I lift up my eyes to the hills. From where does my help come? My help comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. And so we don't focus on, as Christians, we don't focus on our human abilities as we have developed them to be able to tackle everything. Our strength comes from the Lord. And then Psalm 46, 2. Therefore we will not fear, though the earth give way and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea. And this one I had in mind with the COVID. There is certainly place for caution and for being practical when it comes to pandemic-like situations. But through those precautions that we take, we should not be a people of fear. We should stand apart. We should look different. When people look at Christians in COVID, that doesn't mean they don't take precautions and they don't take practical measures to reduce it, but we should not be a people who are in fear. They should look at us and see that our confidence is in the Lord and we are not subject to the whims of our environment and whatever our situation may be. Now, it's easier said than done, obviously, but I just want to kind of contrast what our perspective should be versus what a lot of students are going to get at school. And so going back to the bullet point above there, we need to, parents must explicitly and often reinforce Christian values. So, okay, I guess that ties in below here. Sorry, I'm jumping all over. So when it comes to reinforcing values, it's quantity over quality. And I know that's opposite. Normally you would think quality over quantity. But the idea here is students are getting this every day, all day at their school. And it's not, it's not even that anyone has some sort of malevolent intention, insidious intentions. It's just, like I said before, it's just a culture trying to make sense of the world without God. They don't know Jesus. And so they're doing in some sense, they're doing the best they can. And we just need to be cognizant of that and say, okay, if they're getting this message 10, 15, 20 times a day, every day in school, and I give a sit-down talk once a year with my kids, who's going to win that battle? I mean, it's the quantity over quantity. If they're hearing this from their friends, from their teachers, from administration, whoever it may be, we need to combat that and make sure that we are constantly, daily reinforcing what are our values, how are we different as Christians, and having a good sit-down talk now and again is great, but there's got to be little reminders every day. I just think that's so important because what you say, if you say it once a year, it's just going to get drowned out by all the messages that they're getting elsewhere. And we must behave as if we really believe what we say we believe. So I don't have a lot more to say about that, but just really live out the values that you talk about at home so that they can see it and not just hear you say it. So the last one here, immerse yourself in sound doctrine and apologetics. So this is my kind of go-to thing. I know a lot of you know I really like Christian apologetics. So the the discipline of being prepared to give a reason for the hope that you have, being prepared to defend your beliefs. And that goes along with being disciplined in sound doctrine as well. You know, what do we believe as Christians and as Lutherans? What do we believe here? Why do we believe it? And so that you can actually reinforce that with your kids. So I have a couple verses here. I've hidden your word in my heart that I may not sin against you. Psalm 119:11. But in your hearts revere Christ as Lord. Always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope that you have. And so, I lost my train of thought. I think we just need to train up our kids from an early age, and teach them in these things, and not leave anything to the churches, not leave anything to the school. Just be that sort of daily reminder, that daily refreshing for our kids when they come home. I had a couple more things to say, but I want to pause if there's any questions now, because we got about 7 or 8 minutes left. Any questions along with this, and I'll just go in whatever direction you guys are interested in here. Okay, so one of the things that I was going to briefly talk about is, and as I said at the very top here, we need to, I think as parents, I say we, I'm not a parent, but as parents, we as Christians, we need to be careful about school, whether it's public or private school. I attended up through 6th grade a Christian private school. I did a little bit of teaching at Oak Grove Christian School in Fargo as a long-term sub there. So I have a little bit of insights into how many Christian private schools work. And I guess my message is, as parents, don't let your guard down. Sending your kid to a Christian private school is a great thing, but it raises the stakes. And what I mean by that is, if your student, your kid, somehow leaves that Christian school not having a strong faith, that's going to count doubly against them, because they're going to go off to college, wherever it may be, and they've left that Christian school not being convinced of the truth of the gospel, but now they think they know all about Christianity. So someone tells them about it, they're like, oh, I already know all about that, and they can dismiss it. And so I think we need to really be careful and not just assume that, okay, I sent my kid off to this school, now they are going to be taken care of. The teachers are going to instill in them the Christian doctrine, the Christian beliefs that I want them to have. That does not take any responsibility away from what parents need to do as far as disciplining and raising their kids in the Christian way. I guess I could say more on that, but we're pretty much out of time here. So I'll see if there's any questions on that last comment I made.
I was just wondering, this is slightly,
Yeah, that's okay.
are there any Christian ministry supports for students in public school?
I know I see at the middle school they have like FCA, Fellowship of Christian Athletes, that kind of thing. I'm not sure if I've seen that at the high school. Granted, a lot of those clubs and sorts of things are kind of on a, right now at least, hit or miss whether they're actually, happening. But generally, I think there are some. I can't list anything other than FCA off the top of my head. Does anyone know more than I do on that? Okay. Yeah. Other comments or questions?
Are the schools, as far as what they're doing for hybrid now, putting this down, like, I know it's gonna be different from school to school.
Yeah.
It's like, this is what could happen in the future if there's another pandemic. Or is it still just like a rough draft of what they'd like to see?
Well, yeah, so we're kind of the way it was set up, and I didn't explain this, but it's been set up where we are situation has been color coded, where there's 5 color codes. We've got blue, green, yellow, orange, red, different states that we're in based on, active cases in the area, active cases at an individual school, just different factors. And so they kind of will move us up and down that scale. Blue and green means face-to-face, yellow means hybrid, and orange or red means fully distance. And so I don't know if they would use that same model if there were to be a future disease of some sort, but that's kind of how they're operating. So they feel free to move up and down that scale throughout this whole year based on what's going on.
And then, like, do schools foresee, I maybe you wouldn't know this, like, once this pandemic is done, we don't have one, could schools possibly use online system for if a kid is sick, still could log in at home online and do it?
Yeah. First of all, I would say probably no one's thinking about that right now, but just from a teacher's perspective, that could be possible. But again, a lot of what we do in a class has to be prepared with the sorts of students we have in mind. And so if I even have just 2 students logging in from home, that drastically changes what I'm going to do in that class to incorporate them. And so I don't see that being something that would be preferable, just because, it in some way limits what I do for the other 25 kids, because there's a couple of kids logging in at home. And so I think there will be some technology things that will get carried over, but I don't know if like a synchronous at home in school, for a sick kid or something like that, I don't know if that will ever be mainstream. Yeah. Could be wrong.
If you're only going at 60 or 75% or whatever you said.
It
and
slows
if
you
you have
down.
your kids back, you're gonna be going full force.
Yeah,
So
it does slow us
That's a
down.
huge difference too, I would think.
Yeah. And again, we may get up, some teachers may say, hey, I'm teaching just as fast as I ever did. Some teachers maybe are doing it better than I am. This is, again, don't take what I'm saying as the truth for how it's working for everyone. Okay, well, if there are no other questions, I think let's close in prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for our opportunities to start attending school again, to be able to be here in church in person, and to start Sunday school again. We thank you for keeping us safe during this pandemic. We ask you for wisdom, just as when Solomon was made king, his request was for wisdom. We ask that you give us wisdom as well as we navigate this school and church and just our daily life during this COVID pandemic. We ask that you would just keep us safe and make our focus be on you above all other things. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thank you all for participating and being here. Thank you, John, for teaching and giving us insights from all different perspectives. And if you'd like to talk to John later on today, now or after the service, he will make himself